Hello, everyone. How's it going? My name's Tanya. I'm half of Fangirl Feels. We have another co host, Olivia, who you'll see in a couple seconds. But now I'm going to introduce an episode that we have already published and then took down as soon as the actors or writer strike happened. I think we published it the day the actors went on strike. So we had to take it down because the topic of this episode is about Twilight, and that was struck content. But now that the actors and writers strike are over, congrats to both of those unions for having their demands met. We are able to drop this episode now. So we may mention some things that happened in the past. We dropped this episode in July, I think. So it's been a while. What we talk about is that Olivia and I had binged the Twilight movies all in one weekend. It was right after we published our Twilight episode where we talk about the books and the history of Twilight. So we hope you enjoy this episode. Please let us know what you think. If you're new here, we're Fangirl Feels. We talk about all the things that give us all the feels, all the books, TV shows, movies, etc., that make us feel too many feelings. So we'll hope you join us in following weeks, and we'll get back to our regular content next week. So until then, enjoy. As teen girls, we're just like, I've never had a boyfriend, and Edward is professing his love to a woman and saying he would die for her. And now I know a lot of what he said was manipulative. Hello and welcome to the Fangirl Feels podcast. My name's Tanya.
My name's Olivia.
And we're Fangirl Feels. Today, specifically, we're talking about Twilight again because Olivia and I binged all 5 of the Twilight movies in one weekend.
It was surprisingly easy to do. This was prompted from our Twilight episode that we had maybe 2 weeks ago now. We both decided, hey, we should just watch the movies and talk about it. So here we are. Now we've watched them all again. They are fresh in my brain against my better judgment. They're here.
Against my will.
Against my will. They're fresh in my brain. And we have thoughts. For sure.
Yes. So it was my first time watching. I think I saw the first one, Twilight and New Moon, when I was younger, but I never saw the other ones because I didn't read those books. But I know that you had read and watched all movies, correct?
Yes, I was a Twilight girly. I watched them all, read them all, watched them all. Yes.
Yes.
With a sigh. But again, I would just like to say, I was a Twilight girly. I loved it. I still respect how much it meant to me as a kid. But as a 30-year-old woman, I do have different thoughts now.
All right. So we're going to go through our thoughts that have honestly changed since we first read the books and watched the movies, because we shared our thoughts we were messaging each other, and it's so funny how much they differ now and how much our young teenage brains can be manipulated. So very important.
I'm ready to jump in because it's unbelievable. If anyone follows me on Instagram and saw some of my stories, I was having a quarter life crisis. I was like, who was I as a child? Oh my gosh, I needed to be protected. Where were my parents?
What were they doing? Did they not watch this with us? And they know they did. I went with my friends to the movies. They had no idea.
No, they had no idea. I still don't think my parents know what Twilight is. Oh my gosh, what? Again, it's not that serious. I say this is not that serious, but wow. Edward, we gotta chat. Edward.
Here we go. First topic of conversation, Edward versus Jacob.
Edward, we gotta talk.
What you think? We gotta talk.
Edward, we gotta talk. I was staunchly Team Edward. I never even considered Jacob. Jacob was just, I was like, who would even think of Jacob? This is nonsense. This is teenage me. I do remember when I watched the movies thinking Jacob was just better in this and more attractive. I mean, Taylor Lautner, the way they even portray them in the movies, Edward is not. Rob Pattinson's a good looking dude, but him as Edward and the makeup and the eyes, he's not cute. He's just not cute. So Taylor Lautner, in comparison, I remember as my teenage self thinking he was more he was more attractive, but I was still Team Edward. Now Jacob is not only more attractive, but just a better, decent human. Excuse me. Edward, what are you doing?
Hard agree to all of that. Yeah, I was staunchly Team Edward. I do think his makeup was weird, and I did think Taylor was attractive, but everyone was Team Edward, right? You read those books, and Stephanie was kind of guiding you towards that to choose Edward. But yeah, like you said, there's so many reasons why Jacob is better now as an adult who is like in a relationship, and like we're just older and we just know what's healthier for us. As teen girls, we're just like, I've never had a boyfriend, and Edward is professing his love to a woman and saying he would die for her, and like now I know a lot of what he said was manipulative, and the grooming that takes place is surprising to me that like Stephanie Myers wrote this, that like these are vampires who have lived for a long time. They should know that the human brain isn't done developing till 25, so they should not mess with high school girls or boys, whoever. Like their brains aren't developed. Just wait till they're older to start dating them.
Yeah, very good point. That is, that's, yes, she is 18. She's 16 or 17 when she meets Edward, and that's messed up. I did see someone did reply to one of my stories about how apparently canonically Stephanie Meyer says that the vampires stop aging mentally the age that they were turned. I think that's to help justify some of Edward's behavior.
I was going to say, I think, did she write that she shared that afterwards, like J.K. Rowling afterwards,
yes.
like when people are like, hey, there's not enough diversity. Okay, Nagini was Korean.
Yeah, exactly. So, or yeah, and like Dumbledore was gay, but
Dumbledore was gay afterwards. No one asked.
No one asked, nor did
afterwards.
Yeah, nor did that ever come up. I'm confused. You don't get like brownie points for that. Yeah. So I think that's part of it. I think that's like what she was trying to do, but that's nonsense. And one of the biggest things for me, again, because I remember what I thought about as a kid, as a teenager, I remember him being like incredibly protective and hiding information from her. Or I thought like New Moon. I mean, yeah, New Moon was actually my favorite book. I remember thinking it was romantic. I remember thinking the entire thing was romantic. Him like wanting to leave, like I didn't like that he left, but just like the idea that he was trying to protect her, and just this whole theme of his where he thinks he knows what's best for her and is like trying to protect her and maybe isn't sharing everything with her. I remember thinking that was romantic as a teenager. And now I like cannot believe that. I cannot believe that. It is like, it's condescending, it's manipulative. You're not treating her as an adult, you're treating her as a child, and you're the adult. You think you know what's best for her. It's just all around messed up. And I just remember thinking it was cute. And now I'm like hitting my microphone. I'm like, I can't even believe that. It's just wild. It's wild. No wonder I had messed up perceptions of relationships back then,
Hard agree. I think that so I was talking to James about this, my partner. I think a lot of YA kind of like, if you read YA fantasy / like romance books, they often portray like the lead male protagonist who is supposed to be like, the hot one you want, as like this guy who would like has undying love for you and would do anything for you and like is catered and devoted and desires you more than anyone else in the world. So we talk about Rhysand from ACOTAR, who is problematic. He left information from Farah that would be important for her and her own choices. Same thing here with Edward. He's manipulative. The language he uses, the fact he's going for a younger woman, he just left without explaining anything. And like, yeah, again, I didn't think anything of it the first time I read that book, but then now looking back at it, like she needs information. She's so young. Like the fact that she was like traumatized from that for months. He isolated her from her friends and Charlie. Like, when she turns finally into a vampire, spoiler alert, I guess we don't need to say that, but you should be seeing the movies by now. Like he's isolated her from him, which is a tactic of manipulators. Like I just can't believe it.
It is like textbook manipulate, like emotionally abusive. I don't like to throw out those terms, so if that's not correct, please tell me. But it is wildly bad. The isolation from Charlie is a big one. I hate when stories rely on it could be solved with just a conversation, and he refused. He refused. And the funniest thing to me is when he leaves. So in New Moon, again, the books might be different. I haven't read the books in years, but I remember in the movie, since this is the freshest in my mind, when, you know, she cuts her hand, like her finger, and then Jasper freaks out. And then Edward pushes her and she goes flying into the table and it cuts like her arm. And then he's upset. I'm like, dude, you did this. Like, this was your fault. Like, you are the one that slammed her into a table. You made this situation 5 times worse than it needed to. And then you feel like you can just like take control and be like, hey, I'm leaving. I don't like you anymore. Like, it is bonkersly bad.
So, and she's like, it's a world where she doesn't even understand. She didn't even know that would be a risk. Like, if you knew that would happen, you're literally learning about vampires for the first time being real ever. You thought they were fake. So how would you know like something like that would trigger everyone? You would, if you knew that, you would go in with gloves or something. You know what I mean? Like, she's like doesn't know things, and he's like, I'm gonna leave. No explanation. Goodbye. It's
No
for your safety.
It's for his, without actually telling you it's for your safety. And then when he thinks that she dies, he's like, I'm out. I'm gonna go die now too. Like, what the actual F, Edward? Like,
No, really, that is, and it is actually abusive, manipulative behavior to do something like that. That is insane.
yeah, because then it forces her to feel responsibility for his life and have to go all the way to wherever they are in freaking Italy to save him. And then she's like, I just didn't want you to die. Like, it is so beyond bad. And Charlie, when you mentioned Charlie too, where he's like trying to get her, like during New Moon, where he's trying to get her to go out and like be with his, like her friends again. Cause he's like, this is not healthy. Like, this is not normal. I find it funny that they put that in the movie and still make you team Edward, right? When Charlie is literally like, this is not okay. Like, this is unhealthy. You have not left your room in months. You are not well. This relationship is bad. It's right in front of our faces. And we're still team Edward
It's
in the
right
movie.
there, and we're as girls, teen girls were like, "Fuck Charlie, yeah,
Yeah,
no, screw you, Dad." Like,
yeah.
Bella, go get Edward.
But no one now is saying fuck Charlie because Charlie is the best.
Yeah.
Charlie is the only normal person in this entire thing, which I know we'll talk about that too. But Charlie is literally, I was like, this man, he's not a boy, this man, MVP, the enviest of MVPs.
Let's bring that up now. Next topic is that, like, you know, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is like our change in perception, and it is that Charlie is actually one of the only sane people in this whole book/movie series. Like, he's looking out for Bella. Bella rebels a lot, but Bella's also a kid. She doesn't know better. Her brain's still growing, and I just think like there needs to be more emphasis on the fact that Charlie's a good dad and he cares about Bella.
He's a great dad. He's literally doing the best he can. Poor guy. Anytime she hurt him, like whatever she said, I was like, I gotta turn this off. Like, I can't. How dare you hurt Charlie? He's the best. And like, yeah, him not liking Edward, totally fair. You know, I wouldn't like him either if my daughter got, you know, left and like always gets hurt around this guy and then is completely depressed for months, and then this guy comes walking back into her life and then proposes to her at the age of freaking 18. I wouldn't allow that to happen. Like, if Bella was my daughter, I'd be like, absolutely not. You are not marrying this man. Sorry.
Right. Can you imagine? No, like,
No.
this would never happen.
No.
He was doing the best he can.
Zero. I know, poor guy. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the mom, like Bella's mom, is like in La La Land and comes back, and like, I'm like, no one finds it weird that she's getting married at 18, except for like Jessica. What's the actress's name?
Yeah, Anna Kendrick.
Yes, she's the only also normal person, and she's the only one that's like, she's pregnant. Like, the only other person who thinks like this is weird.
So our next topic is justice for Jessica and Mike, because like as we're watching it now, we're like, we would have the same reactions. Like, you remember when Bella goes down and talks to those bikers and she's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I would be the same way if you did that, Olivia, like as a good friend. These two folks, and Mike also, he's like the same like teenage boy that she should be going for, not this like older vampire who's like, you know, manipulating Bella. Like, they're just trying to get her to do fun teenage things, as they should, because they're kids.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. I remember thinking they were annoying too, and now I'm like, they were normal kids, and they're cute and they're funny. And Jessica's humor was always kind of funny throughout the movies. They did a good job with her. I think it's like the movie does an overall a good job of being kind of self-aware to some extent. It's self-aware to some extent. with those moments and with Charlie. So that helps, because otherwise you're like, this is insane. This is insanity. Like, what are we doing here? What's happening?
Yeah, did the books made it seem more like not like making fun of itself, right?
I don't remember the books making fun of itself. No. The books took
Okay.
itself pretty seriously. Again, Edward was different in the books. Edward was more fun in the books. Do I think his overall behaviors were not different? But I just remember Edward was more charming. But I think part of it makes it worse is like Edward's not even cute and he's not even like charming, and then he's doing all these things. So it's like a double whammy bad in the movies. But then in the books, at least he had that going for him. No, the books never did any of that. The books were like, this is totally fine. Team Edward.
Team Edward.
Team Edward.
No question.
No questions asked.
Speaking of, I did want to go back because I do want to talk about reasons we think Jacob's better. We forgot to compare the two. Let's talk about now why we think Jacob is the better choice. I had a list of reasons. I'm sure they're similar to yours. We'll talk about him, but like all in all, like he's more age appropriate. You know, Bella does turn 18, but I mean, it makes logical sense. Like she was in high school, but yeah, he's more rational. Literally, like he's like telling her, "You could literally die if you're around him," and lo and behold, she gets into several situations where she almost dies around Edward. He's literally warm, which helps humans. That's great. We love that. Sense of community and values with his Native American family. I think that's awesome compared to Edward and his family literally have to move every 4 years. Is that what they said? Like after they graduate high school, they got to go to another high school because they look the same. Like just overall. Yeah, just overall, just like a better choice, healthier choice. And he's hot. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, in movie form, especially, Taylor Lautner was a very attractive young man, and 16-year-old me could not deny that, right? He was just, even if I was Team Edward, I was like, damn, Taylor Lautner, it looks great. And the community thing is a big one that I notice now, like being 30 years old. And I think I say Taylor Lautner, I think Jacob says this quite literally in the movies where he says, you don't have to change for me, Bella. Where, you know, when Bella turns into a vampire, she has to literally tell her family that she's died. She has to abandon everything that she loves, back to the isolation part. And with Jacob, none of that has to happen. You win it all. You get it all with Jacob. And it's like one thing if she wasn't attracted to him or didn't love him, but she did. She did love him, right? And was attracted to him. So what's the issue here? What's the problem?
What is going on, Stephanie Myers? Like, what?
This man is clearly better. This boy/man, he's better. Doesn't have to move around. Yeah, some people replied to my stories being like, but Jacob forcefully kissed Bella. And like, yes, I don't approve of that. But I'm going to be honest. And the list of issues, that's pretty low. Compared to everything that Edward did. Like, if this is our biggest thing, besides the Renesmee garbage, which comes later, it's not even a part of this conversation, really, because this is after Bella married Edward. But if we're just taking from Twilight to Eclipse, if that's his biggest flaw, then dude's okay. He apologized, right? I don't know.
He recognized that as an issue. I agree that, like, I wrote that his issues are, like, he later also guilt trips her into, like, wanting to be into him. But he was also a kid still. Again, I'm just going to say that, like, he's also a kid. Perfect. Yeah, those things aren't good, but like still like comparatively a healthier choice.
Yeah, no one's going to be 100% perfect in this scenario, right? Yeah, and meanwhile, Edward's literally textbook problematic, and then you have Jacob who made a mistake. Not you can't compare. Sorry. Compare. Sorry, not sorry. It is wild. I keep changing my age because I don't know how old. I think I was like 15, 16. 16-year-old me is screaming. It's like, what are you saying? But no.
Right. Yeah, it's clearly Team Edward. What are you saying?
No. 16-year-old me. No. Stop it.
I, for the first time, watched Eclipse, Breaking Dawn 1 and Breaking Dawn 2. And I finally learned about the weird imprinting situation and the weird baby being born weird. Bella turning into a vampire situation. Odd all around. Just burn those movies like they never happened. What?
Yes, please. We should burn them to the ground. I agree. The Breaking Dawn 1 and 2 are like the books, the movies, I wish they never existed. I wish I didn't know about them. They are terrible. Horrible stories.
They can all be summarized by Breaking Dawn can be summarized by just a miscommunication. That's all that happened.
And Breaking Dawn or Eclipse?
Breaking Dawn, the Volturi came because they thought Renesmee was one of those like whatever children that like burned down cities, and then they came. Like that's literally just a miscommunication because a kid, she was born a vampire and not turned as a kid, and I'm just like, what? That's the whole.
Yeah.
That's what this movie's like based on.
About. Yeah. Other besides the like the terrible parasite baby human situation. I hate that more than the Volturi plot. The Volturi plot is dumb. It's a dumb plot, but whatever, right? It's the baby thing that gets I'm like, I can't believe this exists. I can't believe someone wrote this down. I can't believe it.
Unchecked. Her publishers again at that point were just sleeping. They're like, we trust you, just write whatever you want. It's good.
It's fine. It's a weird situation because again, if people love it, it's fine. I have no issues with things existing that make people happy, but this is bonkers. This is bonkers. To each their own. But and again, I was a Twilight kid. See, I live in this weird space now where I'm like, oh my God. But I didn't like Breaking Dawn as a kid either. So, I'm
going to stand firmly and no, weird. You shouldn't like this either.
I feel bad. I mean, yeah, this is weird. I agree. This is just weird. And I think most people just make fun of it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it is the strangest storyline to ever exist on the face of the planet.
Just the imprinting thing is just so strange. And I wonder if she did it to just keep Jacob still in the storyline, but at the same time, it's like you could have done that in so many other ways. So like, oh, I'm just still friends with you guys. Done. Do not need to have him imprint on a baby. That's weird.
It was like a way to satisfy the love triangle without actually doing any work. And like justify the end of the love triangle. She put herself into a corner and didn't know how to get out. And so just did that and didn't think of the consequences when the consequences are terrible. Look what you've done, Stephanie Meyer.
Look what you've done. You wrote this.
What is this atrocity in which you created? But also you made your bank, so good for her. I read something where Taylor Lautner was really uncomfortable with playing it, but then after he realized he was only able to justify it to himself by being able to say it's not romantic until after she grows up, which again is grooming, I guess. But he had to he needed the money, or he needed the job, so I don't blame it. It's not his fault, but he had to try and justify it to himself in some way without it being weird. It's so weird. He did a good job playing it overall.
I think so. He did good acting. He wasn't in many things after that, which is sad because I thought he did a good job.
He did. Yeah, he was. Honestly, I think at some point the movie even realizes that Jacob is the best part of the whole series. I think they start to realize that. And even it's funny watching New Moon after Twilight, and Twilight is cold and blue and awkward, and then you get to New Moon and it has that gold sheen around it, right? Because it's supposed to represent the wolves. And it just feels better. The entire movie feels better. It's like composition and its style and its color scheme. It's wild to me. I do think even the movie knows that Jacob is the saving grace of the entire thing. And Taylor Lautner, especially, his portrayal of Jacob is the saving grace of it.
We should look up if they changed directors, because like similarly in Harry Potter, once they switched directors, the movie just changed radically. But I agree, like that was my main takeaway, was the New Moon was drastically different, just better music choices, like editing, composition, like the way it just unfurled. It was so much better. It reminded me of watching Harry Potter. It like one of the earlier movies. I was like, this is a similar like moody feel. I really liked it.
Yeah, I wonder if it had someone who worked on Harry Potter on it. I want to say, no, I don't know if any directors were on it. But yeah, it did feel Harry Potter-esque, especially as it kept going. Even Eclipse and Breaking Dawn, they do feel very Harry Potter-esque. And they're entertaining movies. If they weren't entertaining, we wouldn't have finished them in a weekend. So we have to give it that, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they're necessarily good, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be. What did you think of the twist of Breaking Dawn Part 2, the one I was hinting at before?
So I didn't read the books. I didn't know what the twist was, but I'm just gonna assume it's that the final fight just didn't happen. It was all like Alice showed the Volturi that he would be dying, and then they show That like so that final fight was just him like envisioning it, and then but it didn't happen. So is that the twist?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
exactly.
So in the books, do all those people die?
No one dies in the book. So in the books, it
Oh.
just kind of the conversation occurs. At least I haven't read these books in like a very long time, but none of that fight occurs. Obviously, you don't even. That never even happens, where I don't believe Alice shows him anything. I don't believe that entire thing happens. It's just they have the conversation and I believe it ends. There might be some fight. I don't know. But everything that happens with Alice where, you see Carlisle die and all of them die, none of that is in the book. So while you're watching it, I remember in the theater, the entire theater was freaking out because you're like, this is not what happens. This is not in the books. And they kill off Carlisle. Like, what the heck? And Jasper, I believe, dies. Like so many major characters die in that vision. So and some people hate it. I've seen some people be like, it was such like a gaslighty type thing. I don't know if that's the right word, but just didn't like it. I think it was clever to make the most of like a two-parter when it didn't even need to be a two-parter. It added enough drama. But it was a one-time thing. Like you can't do that again, or you can't watch it again with the same surprise because obviously what happens.
Fair. And they probably did it because, like, based off the book, that sounds a little anticlimactic. So they probably needed like for a movie specifically for things to come to a head, and then So I kind of like that they did it. To be honest, I think it's a good change.
It was a good change. I agree. I think it's the best thing that they did. Made it more interesting. And like Seth dies or something. Like, so many people die, and you're like, oh my God. Yeah.
How could they? Yeah.
It was good. Good for the drama.
Yeah. So overall, we had a good time. I don't know if I'd ever watch all of those again. Maybe just the first one in like a couple years, because I rewatch Harry Potter movies every year, but these maybe not.
No, in another 20 years, maybe.
Yeah.
In 20 years, we do this podcast again. We talk about
it.
But I do think it's nice to see that my brain developed, in the 20 years since I've read this, or however long it's been. Nice to know I've aged well, I think. I like to think so.
Yeah.
Team Jacob.
Yeah.
# Team Jacob.
We've switched. We need to get those stickers now.
Yeah, I know. I showed you. I posted on my story those old, because those were from the Breaking Dawn release party. Those stickers, and it said like Team Edward and Bella and Edward for life. Now I can't believe 16-year-old me needed to help.
We gotta go tell her stop,
girly, stop. But that's okay because that night when she read Breaking Dawn, she hated it. So
there we go.
Still had a good head on her shoulders. 16-year-old me.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, good.
Tanya just said, "Nope, I'm going to college. I'm done."
You were better than me. It took me longer, but we got there. What a book. What a series that exists on this planet.
Good
times. For better or for worse.
Yeah. Something to talk about. Hey, there you go. Fulfilled its purpose.
It did. Good times. Thank you for listening to the Fangirl Feels podcast. Like, follow, subscribe. We're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. We are really expanding out here. Please like and comment. If you're on YouTube, follow us and leave us a comment on what you liked. What are your thoughts on Twilight? Are you Team Jacob or Team Edward? How has your opinion changed? We'll have something in Spotify also for you to interact with us. We love getting that feedback and responding to you. We'll be back in your feed next week. But until then, bye. Bye.